What if you could take a road trip that would never end? Well, that's what these people did. They rented out their home, renovated a Volkswagen van, and shipped it across the Atlantic to start their adventure. Lee, Willow, and their cat Amy have met a ton of amazing people, each with their own sets of stories. I really enjoyed their initial thoughts on visiting America and their tips with dealing with being extorted by foreign police. Quick disclaimer about this episode, the audio has a bit of an echo on their end, since they are recording from a hostel in Mexico. So you can't really expect the highest quality audio whenever people are living out of a van. But even then, this episode is well worth the listen for all the wild stories you get from living out of their van. I'm Trevor, and this is Out of Somewhere.
Right, we're Lee and Willow.
Yeah.
We're two Brits who are currently travelling North America in a VW.
So currently in our camper van in Mexico for the last year.
Cool. All right, so you guys are in a van. You currently in America. So where all have you been so far? What's your story? Because you started this how long ago?
We started in the end of August 2019, but we bought our old VW a long time before that.
Yeah, 2015 we bought that, but this trip we started 2019 in New York.
Yeah, we shipped our VW from England to America. Flew over to meet it.
How do you ship a whole vehicle, like van too?
It's actually not too bad. You have to contact a freight company, of which there's quite a few, and then you just have to arrange when you want to go, and then they put you in touch with someone who sorts the customs side of it. That's kind of more complicated.
And the guys on the docks on the other side.
That you have to pay to get it through customs, and you have to pay to.
There are two types of shipping as well.
Yes.
You can either put it in a container, or you can. It's called ro-ro, so it's called roll on, roll off, where they literally just put the vehicles on, strap them down. They're not as secure as in a container, but it's a lot cheaper.
Which one do you guys go for?
We went for the cheap option.
Ro-ro.
Yeah,
the container's £3,000, and we couldn't afford it.
Oof.
So yeah, it cost half of that to ship the other way, so it was fine. And then you just it's really weird, you just turn up on the docks and give some random person your keys and just walk away.
Something that you've spent years building from scratch and investing all that time, money and energy, and then you go,
here's my baby.
Hopefully it's going to be in America when we get there, and we're not just going to live in an Airbnb.
Yeah, and I tracked it on this app. You can track the freight ship on this app. So I
disappeared.
Oh yeah, I was watching it, and it went down the English channel, and then the ship just disappeared, just completely off the app, and I was like, oh my god, it's so nice.
Reading daily news bulletins to make sure there isn't a freight ship that's
just missing ship.
Yeah.
So really freaked out, and then a week later, it just kind of popped up near Canada. I was like, okay, it exists still.
Okay, so I interrupted you. So you guys landing in New York, was that the first trip? Is that where it started?
That's where we started this trip. Yeah, we spent a lot of time before building the camper, and we took it to Scotland in the UK, and we drove it all the way down to the south of France. Constantly had problems because it was a sort of a custom engine build we did. We swapped the original engine out and put a modern one in. So we thought we'd test it before shipping it across the Atlantic and being far from home and stranded. And it broke down a lot.
Before. Yes.
And then we worked the kinks out.
Yeah, we just took it for 2-week holidays, just kind of normal length holidays. And yeah, then New York was the big trip.
Yeah, we had to go to the American embassy and apply for a visa to enter the United States for a longer period than an ESTA. It was quite intimidating.
Yeah, American's scary.
Yeah, the American Immigration Office.
They really
really horrible.
Give you the impression that they do not want you to.
Yeah,
really. Even I don't know. That's very stereotypical around here. I don't know, coming from on the southern border, but I don't know. It feels like our eastern friends are usually a lot easier, but no, it's still the real harsh on you.
It's okay if you wanna do an ESTA, just 3 months. that's easy. But if you want to be anything longer than 3 months, it's like,
yeah, if you want to be a tourist for more than 3 months, the minimum, the maximum they give you is 6 months at a time
on a tourist
visa.
But they like interrogate you like
yeah,
3 times.
Like, especially doing what we're doing, they're like, you want to do what? You want to come to America and live in a camper van? That doesn't sound sensible. Why would you want to do that?
It was like 3 a.m. in the airport, wasn't it, when we just arrived, and he didn't want to let you in.
What sort of stuff do they ask you?
The guy's like,
if you ever get a chance, you should just have a glance at the online immigration form you have to fill out. It's like some of the questions are like, have you ever been a part of genocide? Have you ever been involved with child soldiers? And
yeah, it's like, have you raised an army? Have you been part of like nuclear destruction?
I'm like, only the same as everyone else has on the weekend.
Yeah, just a hobby. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and then you turn up and they're like, no, that doesn't sound practical. I'm like, well,
the quote they gave us in London in the American embassy, they said, once they approved our initial application, said, well, this is your invitation to the party. When you get off the plane, you still got to deal with the bouncers.
Wow.
So we had to, we flew in, and for us, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning with the time difference. And Willow had already been in before and had all of the like fingerprints taken in America. I did it in the embassy, but we got split up because we had a machine. So I scanned my passport and a big like red cross came, and then I had to be interrogated again. And he was just asking the same questions. Why do you want to come to America? How are you going to afford it? What's stopping you from staying here, type of thing? Yeah,
you were like desperately trying to show him pictures of the camper. Like, wow. It's just the camper. It's like, it's in the sea. You have to live.
My van is on a boat in the middle of the ocean, but the boat's kind of missing, but you know, it's fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
We got through.
Wow.
Yeah. We tried to do it, so we started in New York because we could book an Airbnb and do like the sightseeing around New York without trying to live in a camper, because living in a camper in a city is not the most practical.
Not the best, no.
So we did a lot of our New York sightseeing, and then our camper Ruby eventually arrived in the US, but then she got held in customs for a week, so we had to hire an SUV because our Airbnb was booked. So we hired an SUV and lived in that for a week whilst we waited for customs to clear.
It was an interesting start. A precursor of things to come.
Yeah.
All right. So there's so many things I want to ask. So the one thing that stuck with me before I forget about is the engine. You mentioned that you put in a custom engine. You guys did this yourselves? Had other people do it? What's your like background with this for like creating your van?
Okay, so we put a 2-liter Subaru engine in it because they're fairly compatible. I'm actually going to let Willow explain because she's the one who did it all. She's a mechanic and taught motor vehicle engineering in England.
Yeah, well, we bought the camper. My boss at the time, who is a really, really nice guy, he was like, well, you've got to swap the engine. You can't leave that thing in there. It's rubbish. It's like you'll just break down all the time. And he let me bring it into work and put it in our garage at work and then work on it with all my students. So we did the engine conversion. So we did everything because the van we bought was a wreck. Like no electrics, nothing. The previous owner they just ripped everything out and just threw it in the middle. So we kind of put it all back together. Like my kids and my boss, they knew we were always going to do this trip. So she was like built for this by 3 years worth of college kids.
Wow.
It's a kind of cool project.
It is kind of cool. Yeah. Maybe it counts for some of the things that fell off, but yeah. So
yeah, I don't know if I would trust a bunch of college kids, having just more or less recently been one myself, to make the thing I'll be depending and living in on for the next while.
Yeah, and living.
It's funny though, because a lot of them on like the other cars down there, you know, they lose bolts and they're like, oh, whatever. But on the van, because they knew it was real and they knew I was going to drive it and I was going to be in it, they actually cared about it a lot more. And they were, on the whole, I don't think any of them really made any. They didn't make any mistakes.
But it wasn't one time the
purpose.
wheel fell off when we were driving
Yeah.
home.
What's that? But I mean, they're going to make mistakes. It's my job to check
Yeah.
that they've done everything properly. I'm a teacher, but you know, nobody was like lazy or couldn't be bothered or was like, oh, whatever. Yeah, they kind of really enjoyed to have something that meant something. So it was kind of cool.
Huh. Yeah, it's wild. For sure. So you arrive at New York and then you do some sightseeing. Then what was next?
Well, we had a 6-month period, and our plan was to do the outline of the United States, to do the East Coast, the South, head up the West Coast, and then get into Canada for when our visa expired. So we toured all of the East Coast. We drove up to Niagara Falls, caught up with some friends in Pittsburgh, drove all the way down then to Key West in Florida, which was kind of cool. It was a different experience. On the way, we picked up a rescue cat, and it was really ill, and it died after a couple of days, which was horrible. But the person who had it had another rescue cat that they needed rehoming, so we offered to take that one on it, and she was in a lot better health, and she's been with us ever since.
Yeah. So we did most of it with the cat.
Yeah.
And then we went from Florida, Key West, like up the other side of the west coast of Florida, and then across the south and like New Mexico, Texas, like all of that kind of.
The East Coast was crazy, and we had some apps like it's kind of like that couch surfing thing, but for camper vans. Like they're like driveway hosts, so like you contact them on the app, and they're on a spot, and they'll be like, oh yeah, you can stay, and these are the facilities I'm willing to give you. So we tried it out with a guy in where was Victor? He was in
near Orlando, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was like
Florida.
Yeah, somewhere in Florida, and he was like, he said, yeah, you can stay. He's got a VW as well. He led us into his house, used his shower. He bought us Chinese. And then when we told him we were going to Tampa, because I wanted to see an English like folk punk singer perform there, he was like, oh, I've got a second house in Tampa. I'll give you the code to get in, and you can just
what a guy.
do whatever you need to do there. Which is kind of cool.
But you get, people are crazy, like in a really good way. I mean, we met him that night. We never met him before. Like, really nice guy. And then in the morning, he was like, yeah, I got to go now. You know, I got to drive to his house on the other side. So he was like, oh, could you just lock up when you leave? I'm going, bye. Make sure the cat's not inside. We were like, okay. And then he just like gets in his camper and drives off and leaves us in his house.
He just left his house to you. Wow. Oh,
it just like so much trust.
Yeah.
Just because we both own a camper van, it's not much to go on really. But
No.
he's not the only person who's been very nice to
No,
us.
just after leaving Florida, we were driving on the I-10 to Louisiana, and out of nowhere, our front windshield just exploded, completely blew up, fractured into like a million pieces with a big hole where my head was. I think like a rock like shot up off the highway, hit the window, and we were stuck in this rest area. Yeah, we're both fine. We were on a rest area Friday night, and we tried desperately to speak to our insurance to try and get a replacement, and
they were useless.
Yeah, being an old car, it's not something a modern window company could just come out and replace. So we kind of gave it. We put some like messages on some van groups on Facebook. We like popped our roof up, we turned the cooker on, and we were like making pasta, and we opened a bottle of wine, and we were like, all right, we'll try again in the morning. About 8:30, another like old VW turns up, and the guy's English, who now lives in America, and he was like, oh, my dad saw your message on Facebook. I'm breaking a Kombi at the moment. He looked at it and said, yeah, I can swap that. Came back in an hour, swapped it for free, and then invited us to a big camper meetup for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, people have been very kind to us.
It's just like the whole community. Like this is
It's a
something.
massive community. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like sounds like it, but like from the outside, it's like how many people actually just want to go around living in a camper? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, there is that.
but like Yeah, because initially, because so how long have you guys been doing this?
So we've been on the trip now about one year and about 7 months. We've been living full time in our VW.
1 year, 7 months. Wow. So a little over a year and a half. And so what's the plan? Like, how long is this going?
Yeah,
Well, the plan was a year, so that went wrong.
the plan was 12 months and
Well, the plan was 12 months, America, Canada,
home.
ship home. And then we didn't go to Canada because we were like going Canada direction, but it was like February and we had to leave the US because of our visa. And people were like, "Are you crazy? Don't go to Canada now." They're like, "It's going to be horrible. Like, you're going to
Yeah.
be miserable. It's going to be raining and freezing. And like, it's not a four-wheel drive. It can't really do snow. It's not the most
And they were like,
insulated."
you're in California, you're close to Baja. Go to Baja, drink some tequila, have some tacos, and then go to Canada in like a couple of months.
We were like, "Oh, that's a pretty solid plan." Yeah, like we'll do that. We'll pop into Mexico for a
5
month,
weeks.
5 weeks, and that resets our visa, and then we can go back into the States and then, keep going as we plan to. And we were in for 4 weeks,
4 or 5 weeks we were in.
but when COVID hit,
Yeah, and then COVID
And then
hit,
COVID
and then
happened.
the US border just shut. They gave us 24 hours, and they shut it, and we were like,
24 hours to do a 22-hour drive or something.
yeah.
And we were
Yeah,
like, no.
wait, 24
And it
hours
was
to
at the
do.
time.
And where were
You
you?
had COVID. You had. We were Baja, California, sir.
And they're just like, and how'd you get notified?
We were obviously aware that COVID was becoming more
Just
of a problem.
news channels. So we were just checking, the news to see what was going to happen. And we were traveling with a bunch of Americans who were quite concerned about the US border shutting. So we were kind of keeping track of it. And then they literally, I think it was like,
It was a Friday morning.
Friday morning, they were like, the border shuts tomorrow. And they were like, bang, gone. We were like, oh, okay,
Wow.
we'll stay here. Because that was like when there was like crazy food shortages
And it
and
was
stuff.
like riots as well with the George Floyd
Yeah,
stuff.
the George Floyd thing was like just after, and it was a bit crazy in the US. And we were like, I'm not sure that's better for us, like not being US citizens. I don't think there was much advantage. So we just stayed, and then we got stuck for a year.
Yeah, and I think we're on plan Z now. We've had so
Yes.
many plans. We were like, we'll see it out for a couple of months, and then we'll go back to America. And
But the border's still not open anyway.
the border still hasn't opened. And then we're like, we'll go south into Guatemala, and then literally last month, Mexico were like, we're closing our border for the first time in the year. And
So we just kind of go with the flow now.
We're quite lucky because we knew we wanted to do this trip for quite a while. So whilst we were renovating the camper, we also bought a rundown house in England. We renovated it ourselves, like top to bottom, remortgaged it to buy a flat as well, and then we rented both properties out. So that's a steady income for us whilst we're over here. It's not a luxury income, but it's just about enough to get by
Yeah,
on a
it's
daily
enough. You
basis.
don't have to like panic about starving or something.
Yeah, it's something that I'm curious about because, like, I don't know, I've done a little bit of research, I guess, into people trying to do this like van lifestyle, and a lot of them end up hitting these financial bottlenecks because they just don't have a steady income from something. So it's clearly something you guys got to look ahead into. But like, even then, is it
so a lot
still...
of people jump on, but we've met a lot of younger people from America.
But we met the people from Canada, and they had been on the road 6-7 months when we met them. It's like last year, and they're already like £10,000 worth of debt, and we were like,
Put it on credit card,
Oh,
try
wow.
and make some money.
so
to pay
like
off
what you're
said
saying
credit
about
card.
like people not, I think we were kind of a bit delusioned about how much money we spent for the first year, and then when it kind of became apparent that we were going to do it a bit longer, we had a proper look at our finances. And I think it's really easy to underestimate how much money you need. Like,
Yeah,
you have a
what's
breakdown,
like,
or you
what's a general like break? Where's at least the bulk going that, like, I don't know, kind of gotchas that people experience?
Phew. Our biggest outgoings has been the camper van, 100%. we've had a.
I mean, if you took we've had a lot of problems that maybe you wouldn't. I think we've been unlucky a bit the last 6 months. But if you took out that unlucky factor, I would say it would be fuel.
Yeah.
Is a massive expense.
Unless you're in like Texas or something.
But even so, if you're it's huge, you need kind of a lot still.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely have to have a budget for stuff not going to plan. Definitely.
Yeah, but a day-to-day budget, especially if you're somewhere here, like Mexico, the price of like vegetables is so cheap.
Well, our daily budget is $25.
About $25, yeah, a day.
Which right now is easily doable because we're not doing anything. We're just waiting.
That's between both of you.
Yeah.
But we're not doing much. We're in this hostel, parked in his garden, and he's charging us a couple of dollars to stay here, and we're waiting for parts. So we're not really doing much. Like if we were driving, then yeah, probably. If you fill up the fuel tank, it costs more than that, doesn't it? But yeah, swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So whenever you guys were going around and COVID wasn't a problem, what was your plan then? What would you find to do? I guess just kind of go around and
so we
how we would find it kind of thing.
Yeah, what would you do? How would you find what to do?
You Googled that thing. What's that website?
Or is it just random ones? Every time we got to a new state, I like to do non-typical touristy things. I'm not one for big cities and seeing a museum, so I'd Google 10 weirdest things to do in Louisiana, 10 weirdest things to do in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, just
makes it a bit more interesting. We did loads of weird things. We found an abandoned trolley graveyard, all these old trams abandoned. We went
to that weird medicine museum.
We found a field where if you hit the rocks, they ring they're metal.
Just interesting. Yeah, just different stuff. So looking it up online, and then I think in America, a lot of what we did was just based on who we met. So you'd go into a bar or you talk to somebody in the supermarket, you'd be like, oh, what's cool around here? And they give you recommendations, and we had this massive list in the camper, and every time someone told us something, we'd write it down, because a lot of people in America, that we met also traveled a little bit, and they're like, oh, when you get to Texas, you have to go here and you have to do this and you have to make sure you see this, because if you're like that, you're like this. And I think the recommendations are probably the best way to find stuff to do.
And obviously we had a kind of circuit already planned. We knew we were heading down the east, down the south, and up the west. So some of it was already kind of planned out. As we got further west and it became closer to December, certain things were harder to do because of the weather changes. So parts of the Grand Canyon, the north rim of the Grand Canyon was shut, and some of the national parks were closing down. But overall, we route, and we
didn't really plan anything before, did we? We just kind of said, oh, we're going to drive around the coast-ish.
Yeah. Met people along the way.
Just meet people and see what they do. And, if you meet someone and you stay on their driveway, that's really cool, because they'll tell you all the good stuff to do.
We met an awesome dude, again, in Florida. He's proper old school hippie guy, big white beard, owns a VW, has been living, traveling in it for 20 years. And he just sat us down one morning, made us breakfast. We got a big map out, and he was just right, you need to go here, you need to go here. Told us everywhere to go in Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, all of these amazing places.
Yeah, so that was
definitely, it worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
So what's been a standout? Okay, how about standout a good, and if one stands out bad, because those are always some good.
My standout will be after the windscreen broke, and we got invited to this VW gathering in a national park for Thanksgiving, and we met all these people, and they welcomed us into their VW groups and cooked us food, and then they invited us to visit. One of them invited us to New Orleans to show us around New Orleans, and then another couple invited us to a place called Slidell and had us on Thanksgiving Day. Took us out on a boat, took us shooting his guns, and I'd never even held a gun, let alone fire a gun. It was like,
and we met the guy for like an hour. Yeah. And he's like, just come live in my house.
And that was just the way he just was like, I like you guys. You seem cool. Come and hang out with me. I'll show you a good time. And that was really cool.
Yeah, the people like we've met.
Definitely, the people we've met has been the biggest highlight, and we've seen some brilliant things that like you see in like films all the time, like the Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls, the Statue of Liberty. Seeing all of these landmarks that you see, the White House.
I thought the White House was really boring.
I was really small.
It got me really far away. That's why I was boring.
Maybe
that's why I thought it was boring. But yeah, I don't know. We don't really like cities much. No. I prefer nature. So I think we saw some really nice. Like Mexico's awesome.
Yeah.
So nice down here.
Yeah, Mexico's been interesting as well, considering we were only planning to be here for 5 weeks.
Yeah, how's that getting around? Like, is language a barrier very often?
It's getting easier.
We're learning more Spanish.
Yeah.
Basically, you kind of have to, I think, especially if you have problems. Like, if you break down and you can't speak any Spanish, then you're kind of a target, I think.
Yeah. When we were in Baja last year, specifically in the south of the peninsula, like near Cabo San Lucas, where like the spring breakers go. Obviously, there's a big American community, and even the locals are fluent in English, so it makes it a lot easier.
But here, no one speaks English. Like where we're staying now, if we need to, whatever we need, it's Spanish. Yeah. So
and it starts picking up quite quickly.
You get better at it.
We're very fluent in car breakdown Spanish.
Yeah, and online ordering Spanish.
So you said you become kind of like a target, just kind of like, I don't know, people try and take advantage of like, dumb English speaker.
Some people.
They don't even think, they're 9 times out of 10, most Mexicans we meet,
they take it personally.
They automatically assume we're American.
They don't like
Americans. So they treat us kind of coldly. And then when you say, soy de Inglaterra, they're like, you're from England. And then all of a sudden their demeanor just changes in an instant. They're like, what are you doing here? And
it's not like a target in a bad way, like someone's going to commit a crime or like rob you. It's just like if you don't speak the language, then maybe they overcharge you, or they tell you, maybe something you don't quite need because they're like, you're wealthy and you can afford it and I'm really poor. So
yeah, it's like take advantage of tourists just because they can.
Yeah, it's just like you're a tourist and you can't speak the language. I think it's fair enough. If you're here and you're staying here, then you should speak the language.
Yeah.
Or at least try.
But overall, the majority of the Mexican people we've met, a lot of them have not got much money, but again, they've been really giving to us, offering us food and.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't like to give the impression that Mexicans are out to get you at all. They're not lovely people. It's just like maybe occasionally.
Yeah.
To be honest, the person that's ripped me off the most in Mexico is DHL. So the one organization.
Yeah, no, this is definitely not
really
like
funny
talking
when
down.
we were deciding to. We were planning on coming from California into Baja, and we're in San Diego making the finishing touches to cross the border, and we'd be somewhere in like Walmart, and people are like,
that one cashier.
Yeah, she's like, where are you going? We're like, we're going to Baja, Mexico. And she's like, I'll pray for you every night. I'm like, why? And they're like, Mexico's not a safe place. And we're like, have you been to Mexico? She's like, no, I've never been there. And then we'd be like cleaning the camper on this driveway where we were staying, and someone would go past and like, a diggy rig, where are you going? We said, Baja. And they're like, you love it. I've been, I go every summer, it's brilliant.
Yeah, no, this is definitely
the perception. I mean, I think I had the same perception of it. I thought Mexico was dangerous from just like media, and like I think you kind of brought up like, it's a dangerous place. Like,
yeah, which is kind of nice because now a lot of people who follow our travel are becoming more aware of the places we've gone and asking us, do we feel safe? And
I felt less like less safe, more unsafe. The bad one in America, I think, at times. It's not like a specific country thing. It's just every country has bad places.
Yeah.
This definitely isn't like conversation back in like Mexico specifically. Like any place that's high in tourism, like people are gonna try to take advantage of tourists. It's just a thing.
There's more crime in London than there is in most parts of Mexico on a daily basis, and no one ever goes, "Oh, don't go to London; it's dangerous."
Yeah, it's just media, really, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So kind of on a similar note, have you guys had any run-ins with like law enforcement, like going through traveling? Like obviously the border, but like
in America, we were fine. I was always worried, especially as you had all these stories about like local sheriffs kind of being free law to themselves. I was like, oh, here we go. We're going to get pulled over. They're going to like smash our tail light and give us a ticket. But
we've never
had any problem.
The most problem we've ever had with the police was we were around Mexico City, like not in it, but there's kind of a radius around Mexico City within quite a big radius. Like we were like about 200 miles away. And the police around there were just out to kind of make money off you. Like they weren't gonna beat you up or hurt you, but they just wanted to give you some dodgy ticket and take your money. And they robbed our friend and they tried to get a load of money off us and they intimidated us a couple of times, but nothing that you're like scared for your life. You're just like, it's not cool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that bad.
No, overall, we've not had any run-ins with police or
nothing, mate. And we've never paid. Oh, when you paid in Cabo, you paid them a bribe. But like that was like a rookie mistake, I think. Since then, we kind of learned, and then we've never paid.
Yeah, we learned very quickly in Mexico. If you're in it, in Cabo,
you did do it wrong.
Yeah, I went out with a German guy who we were quarantining with on a ranch, and we went into Cabo to get some supplies and went for a craft beer, and then we were coming back and the road was very poorly marked.
I think they did it on purpose.
Yeah. And I turned right thinking you could turn either way, and it was a one-way road, and the police car was parked right there, pulled us over, and they were like, you just broke the law. They were like, you need to give us your license. And the ranch we were quarantining in was miles away. And I was like, I'm not giving you my license. They're like, you can come and get it tomorrow. I'm like, I'm not giving you my license. And then they were like, yeah, if you come around the corner onto this quiet road and give us some money, you can go. And we just gave them
a lot of money.
We gave them like $80, $90 and it was done. But I mean, it probably paid out as a fine in England for actually doing that offence.
Well, you would, but in Mexico you pay like a tenner.
Yeah, but that's
what I mean. Like you didn't know, like the first time you kind of learn the hard way.
Yeah, now we learn just so you don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, I don't speak Spanish.
It works surprisingly well.
Great tip.
Yeah,
it's a good one. Simple, especially if it's true.
Yeah, even better. So you don't speak Spanish, and if you know any sort of other language, but very poorly, like German or French, just speaking that.
Yeah, our friends just speak German to them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I guess the higher chance they'll know at least like a little bit of English to try to get something.
Yeah,
potentially. If you start speaking in French or German, they're gonna be.
Well, I'm surprised at how many of the police they'll try and stop you for being a tourist, and they think they can get money, but they can't speak a word of English. I'm like, surely, in your money-making scheme, would it not be good to learn a bit of English? I don't know.
It's a lot easier to extort money from people if you can ask for money from people.
Exactly.
But the system works for us. It's fine.
It's all right. Not really a problem anyway.
So a question I'm sure a lot of people have. So you mentioned you like use these apps and stuff, and often like get support from people, but like how is necessities like using the restroom while on the road, sort of stuff like that? What's your kind of go-to? Like,
I mean, we're lucky. We've got a very well kitted out VW. We've got a toilet, we've got a fridge, we've got a cooker, we've got a sink. So facility wise, we're pretty good. We learned about an app called iOverlander in the US, and we've basically been using it religiously ever since. It tells you where the free camp spots are. It tells you how good the signal is on those camp spots. It tells you where the laundrettes or water points are, where the mechanics are. People put reviews, don't they? And
yeah,
you
it's
can
really
read
good.
about it.
Really good for traveling around, especially. It's nice to have a little bit more knowledge, you know, when you're about to head into a place you've never been before. It's nice to be able to like scout it out a little bit and be like, oh, okay, it looks like I could probably stay here or here and go there if I need something. Kind of nice.
What was the name of the app? I just want to make sure you cut out for a second, so I just want to make sure people hear it.
Okay, it's called iOverlander.
Cool. Yeah, great. No, that definitely seems like an invaluable resource for doing what you guys do.
It's really good. In a way, it kind of takes the romantic part of it away. Like, I read a few books about guys who used to find all these hidden spots in their VW, like in the 80s.
But that's in the 80s when there was less people, and now you have that romantic notion that, oh, just turn up and I'll just camp, and you're like, oh, I can't camp here, and then you're driving around in the middle of the night with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So that's like practicalities, really, versus reality. Maybe a lot of the time, especially like where you are, you know, like here, it's hard to just rock up somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
What makes it so hard?
Again, we're in a big city right now.
It's kind of populated though. Mexico's got quite a lot of, like, say Baja, you can just camp on any beach, so you don't really need to plan it the same. You can probably just go there. I like to plan it because not like it much in advance, but I like to read about it first. But here you probably need a little bit more.
When you're a mainland Mexican and not on the coast, it's a bit more tricky.
It's much more limited here. Like, you can always find somewhere, but you probably need to look at it. You can't just kind of not bother and turn up and see what happens, because you'll probably just get really annoyed.
Yeah.
So, like I said, right now you're waiting on parts to come in. What do you do for like the rest of your time? Like, I mean, don't really have a schedule. Like, what do you guys do?
It's amazing how easy it is to waste time when you have so much practice.
Yeah.
It's an art form.
We've done lots of things. When Corona first happened and we were isolating in the desert, like ranch, we like wrote a book. We upgraded our electric system in the camper.
Quite a lot of work on the camper. We have our YouTube and blogs, so they take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
There's always something you can do in the camper. Like, there's always something that's broken. You can ask anyone who's traveling, there's always something.
Spend a couple of hours trying to find our cat.
I spent like 3 days trying to fit a mosquito net.
Yeah. You just make smaller jobs last longer. And when you're in a city, we've got a bike, so you can cycle around and look at the sights and go for some nice food that you can't probably eat outside of cities like this. I mean, San Cristobal's quite touristy for...
Yeah, we're trying to fix a few other things on the camper while we're stuck anyway. So, you know, it gets like a proper good clean and that kind of thing. It doesn't really sound like much, but yeah, it's surprising your day just kind of somehow disappears.
Yeah, especially when you're living in it full time and you're going from one great beach spot and then you drive to another great beach spot, and then all of a sudden you spend 3 months on the beach and your camper van is basically a beach. Like, there's just sand everywhere. And
yeah, it gets really dirty.
Kind of nice. We washed our curtains for the first time ever this week.
Major life achievement.
So yeah, we're selling van life. This is how fun it is. You get to like do laundry and wash your curtains.
Break down and wash your curtains. Great.
Oh man, that's definitely interesting. Tell me more about this van. So you guys got like a stovetop. You got some like a toilet. You like how do you sleep? Like, obviously this is really hard without like visuals. I'm sure you got something on your YouTube showing all of it. But like,
yeah.
I mean, you know the typical VW, right?
Yeah.
The classic iconic.
Okay, so we have obviously that with a modern pop top. So like the roof that lifts, like you might see the ones where it's like it tips half, like from the back it hinges. They're like from like the Westphalias, but we've got one that lifts like all the way up, like, I don't know, a few feet.
Yeah, and
so
it's got a canvas around it. So
we sleep in our roof up there.
Okay.
And then
Wait, so how much room is in here? So what's like floor to ceiling space?
I mean,
you can sit up in it, like in the top in bed. You can sit up, and then when you're downstairs, you like push all the boards to the back so that you can, cook and stuff.
I'm 5'11", and I can stand up fully in it, which is really useful.
Wow.
With the roof up. Whenever it's down, I'm like...
It's horrible. I don't know how people live in them without a pop top.
No.
So, yeah, the pop top, it's like in the day, it's up so you can get in there and walk about and stuff. And then at night, we pull these boards across the top, and then we sleep on top of them in the kind of tent part at the top. And on top of the pop top, we have a huge solar panel, which powers everything.
Yeah. We've got a compost toilet, so we don't need a chemical facility where we like.
Yeah, because we didn't want to have to trying to find chemical waste stations is not always easy. Dogs.
Yeah.
No worries.
A lot of dogs.
We can just let that pass a little bit if it's going to.
They should stop and say.
They probably will.
What kind of dog is it?
There we go. Pretty much. Our composting toilet's kind of a lifesaver, really.
Yeah.
I mean, in America, when we were in big cities, sometimes we would end up sleeping in a Walmart car park anyway, so we could use their toilets and Wi-Fi. But if you're kind of caught in a bad situation and you really need to go, and there's no toilets on the site.
They don't do public toilets here, really.
Yeah, if you're on like a beach, for example, and there's no porta cabins or...
There's not. And if there are, you don't want to use them.
No, you don't want to walk down the beach and dig a hole.
No, so that's kind of cool. And then because it's compost, you just dig a hole and just bury it, because it's not got like a load of nasty chemicals in it, so you don't have to worry about like proper waste disposal as such. So we have that. We have a fridge. We have
a diesel cooker and heater. It's like a 2-in-1 thing.
So it's like a electric. Look, well, it's not electric. It looks like a 2-ring electric cooker, but it's powered by diesel, and it's the heater too.
Yeah, which hasn't been used much for heating in Mexico, but
in the US,
we were
lifesaver.
We were in like Mesa Verde, and it was like minus 15 degrees Celsius, which I'm not sure in Fahrenheit, but it's very cold.
It was very cold.
We had like ice on the inside of the camper.
Yeah.
Oh man, that sounds awful.
Heater, dual purpose cooking.
Yeah, I mean the plan was to make an off-grid vehicle that you can live off-grid. If we wanted to go into the middle of the desert or a woods or a forest, we could stock up with food, water, just head out, and we wouldn't need to keep going back to find something.
Well, the plan was you don't need a campsite, so you don't need to pay for it if you don't want to. So you've got enough water and power and everything else. You don't need to, some people have their motorhomes and they have to go and plug them in when they get there.
They've got to put their AC on, their Sky TV and satellite dish, because that's what you want to do when you travel into the wilderness. You want to be cool and watch Netflix.
Each to their own.
Oh man, as you're going through that, I had a question. I've lost it. But cooking. How much cooking do you guys do?
Quite a lot.
We quite like cooking.
Yeah, we're pescatarian, so most of our dishes are vegetable based.
Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of something we always liked cooking. So we have probably prioritized a bit of our space for
probably
cooking.
More than the average.
Probably, more than a normal person. We have more bowls than a normal person would. Because we quite like cooking, and like you were saying about what do you do, and like maybe we'll spend a couple of hours making a meal or something.
Yeah, making a nice dish rather than just having some instant noodles.
I think that's the kind of thing people think, you just live off super noodles or something if you're in a camper, and some people do, but
we do at times.
If you're lazy, but we have the facilities to cook a proper meal if you want to.
What's your favorite thing to cook while on the road? I mean, I guess that's always. So what's your favorite thing to cook?
I mean, it depends what's around. Like,
It's kind of nice to try and make something that you tried.
yeah,
You try like I made gorditas the other day.
you did, yeah.
Just to see if I could.
Like when we're in certain parts of Mexico or the US, certain ingredients aren't available for you, so you kind of
you don't really have like one thing because you have to kind of cook what's available. So like you'll go to the veg shop and they'll have like 3 things. So you're like, okay, it's going to be based on that then.
Gotta be a little bit experimental at times.
Yeah,
we've made some very weird things when we haven't done much shopping because we've been like maybe enjoying a time on a beach and the nearest like shop is an hour's drive.
The shops are limited here. Like you can't get half the stuff you can buy in the States or England. Europe. You just can't get it. So you have to kind of you can't really, I think when we first came to Mexico, we planned, we're like, oh yeah, let's make this thing like meal that we liked or whatever. And then you go to the shop and you'd be like, no, they don't sell any of that stuff. And it's basic stuff like a vegetable or, nothing crazy ingredients, but a lot of the shops are really, really limited if you're in somewhere small.
And certain places expensive. I didn't realize coming from Europe and like somewhere like England, salads and vegetables are super cheap. They're dirt cheap. You buy it for like 50 cents if you want a big iceberg lettuce. And we got into Walmart in America, and I don't think America's very good with healthy eating. And as a result, if you want to eat healthy, it's very expensive. And like an iceberg lettuce was like $3.50 or something stupid.
Yeah, it's expensive to eat.
Unless you want a big slab of meat and some potatoes.
But it's cheap here. Vegetables.
What was some culture shocks coming to America?
Loads. And I always wanted to go because from my teenage years, I've always been fascinated with American culture, movies, music.
The container, the drink, you can't drink outside thing.
That's the thing that got...
This is a big deal for us.
So obviously in England, we've got our traditional pubs and beer gardens and stuff. And we rocked up to New York and our Airbnb host was like, let me take you out to this trendy bar in like Brooklyn. And we went there and I went to go outside with my beer and everyone the whole bar just went quiet and everyone's looking at me. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, just popping outside just to get some fresh air and stuff. And they're like, you can't go outside, you'll get arrested. I'm like, what? They're like, no, you can't go outside. It's illegal in the state of New Jersey or whatever to drink outside. And then you'll drive over a bridge and all of a sudden you're in a new state and they're like, there's a load of people waving to you, drinking outside. They're like, yeah, across the river, this is fine. You can do that.
Yeah, you can do that, but you can't put fuel in your own car.
Yeah, the US is almost like 50. We saw 7 of them. 13 states.
22.
We saw 22 states. Wow, that's more than I realized. We saw 22 states, and every one was like a country, like with their own laws, their own culture, and I think that split was the biggest thing. I always thought America would be like England. You go from the south coast to the north coast. And all of the shops sell the same things. All of the people speak roughly the same, do it, but it was so different state to state. It was unbelievable.
And the tipping. I hate that tipping thing.
Oh, that's a whole concept.
Oh, it's so complicated. And the tax as well. That was kind of something we don't have to deal with.
No.
We don't have that at all.
Cheese is a sad thing. Cheese. You're going to be like, what are you talking about?
Cheese is the standout thing for you?
Cheese.
You haven't had
You probably
cheese.
Never tried really
Unless
nice
you're
cheese in America.
Really rich, because it's like $10 for this pathetic little piece.
Little triangle that's like no bigger than your thumb, and it's like $10. But in Europe and England, cheese, you get big blocks of cheese and you open it and it's like crusty and white, and you touch it and it crumbles.
Not really selling.
But you put it in your mouth and it's like, it's packed full of so much flavor, like you're almost dribbling. It's that good. And wherever you go in America, I think the only real requirement of cheese is that it's yellowish in colour and it melts.
Yeah, I think the food surprised me. Like, I thought it would be cheaper.
Portion sizes as well.
Oh, that's a thing as well, especially in Louisiana.
Yeah, but the VW people we met around New Orleans took us out for a meal, and we went to this like restaurant. Everything on the menu was fried. We had enough food to literally eat, fill us to the point of wanting to throw up. And then they gave us a polystyrene box and be like, there you go, take it so you can eat more of this stuff. I want to throw up again later.
We ate it for like 3 days.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, that's great. So where's your favorite of the States?
My favorite in the States. I'm torn between Florida, California, and hear me out. Florida, California, and somewhere like New Mexico. Mainly for Florida because we met so many amazing people and the weather was just fantastic.
It's a cool landscape. It's just not got anything that's not flat.
No, it's a bit flattish and boring.
So flat.
California on the opposite side was like really hilly and beautiful landscape, and there was some really nice people there, but it was super expensive.
Crazy and hard to camp.
Yeah,
really hard to camp.
And when you got places like Utah, Colorado, like it was just you're in this place and there's no one else around you for
I love
miles.
all of the deserts out there. They were so nice.
Yeah, so I can't pick it between them.
Florida has some hills.
What about so culture shocks, America? What about Mexico?
Oh, my favorite.
I mean, Mexico is similar in the way that it's all broken into states as well. So
yeah, very.
My favorite state is definitely San Luis Potosi.
San Luis Potosi was just
which is
phenomenal.
If you're not familiar with Mexico, kind of.
It's like
it's kind of right in the middle,
near the center, but like the north part of the center, more towards the east side of Mexico.
And it's just awesome. It's got all of these jungles. Like, it's a really green state, so it's got like jungles and waterfalls, and the water there, it's got magnesium in it, I think it is, and it's blue, like not like, I don't know how you would say, not like the sea is blue, river, like actual turquoise, like opaque. You can't see through it, but it's like bright blue. It's crazy, and it's thermal. So like you go to all these amazing looking rivers in the mountains in the jungle, and you're like, oh, that looks really nice. And I bet it's freezing, and you go in there, it's like 30 degrees. It's
like a hot tub,
and it's just really, really cool.
Yeah.
So I think I would definitely have to there.
So I do want to ask you a little bit more, specifically about the sort of life you left 2 or more years ago now, a little over a year and a half ago. So how did you go from, what was your life like before? How did that transfer into you guys now living out of a camper van for now over a year and a half?
Well,
I think we were really normal.
Yeah.
In terms of the stereotypical normal, house job.
We live in a city called Birmingham. I'm not sure, again, how well you know England, but it's the second biggest city after London. Willow was studying to become a jeweler in Birmingham from this coast. We met in a proper dingy, like indie nightclub one Wednesday night. Realised we had a lot in common, and as our relationship kind of developed, we kind of talked about what we'd like to do, and we said, it'd be nice to travel. And then we were like, it'd be nice to travel. And then the VW got thrown into it, and we kind of like, this is something to do. We could like plan to do this. So we were like, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly. We're going to make sure we've got a camper van we can live in, and we've got the means to do it, which is why we were invested in a house. But we just the same
as everybody else, really. Like, we both worked like 9 to 5, just a teaching job. We had a little like a regular house in the city and a couple of cats and
I think
just kind of completely like regular, which is why people are like, oh, I'd love to do what you do, but I could never do it. Like anybody could do it. Like there's nothing special about it. It's just having the guts to leave your life.
Yeah.
Because we have like mortgages and we have our family and we have pets and everything. The jobs that we have, we worked really hard to get our jobs and stuff, and we kind of just literally
walked away from
everything, and that is kind of scary.
Wow.
So I think people don't want to do that.
What about the like friends and family? Like what were they telling you as you're like, yeah, I'm about to go live in this van over here for the next year or so?
I think our friends and family were quite supportive.
Oh, my mum kind of suggested it, but I don't think she thought we'd ever actually do it.
Not for this long.
No, they were fine with it, and I think they were just jealous. I think a lot of people...
I wouldn't say jealous, envious.
Okay, but a lot of people are like, oh, I wish I could do that. Oh, that sounds really great, but they're not willing to take the risks. Like when we go back, we have no home, we have no job, we don't really have anywhere to do like live or work or money.
Yeah, we again in our 30s.
Yeah, you kind of like you spend, your 20s getting your career maybe like as a stereotypical person, and then we had that and we both had good careers and we walked away from them, and now we have to start it all over again, which is a bit like...
I think there's a big change, and I've seen it with a lot of people we've met on the road within the past year in Mexico, is when our parents were growing up, it was you meet someone, you get your career, you're married by your mid-20s, you've got your first kid, and that's it. You work up. It's kind of flipping now, and a lot more people are going, well, I can kind of work, but instead of paying rent, I can invest money in a vehicle. I can do it up and have a banging like camper, like buy an Amazon delivery truck. All that money I'm saving on rent, I can put...
You do hear
I can put it into savings, and I can then go. I can travel around in it as well.
Friend, and we have met someone recently who used to live in his camper in San Francisco and work just because it was way cheaper. So I think it's becoming not even to travel, just a more acceptable like way of life, because people are like, oh wait a minute, I don't have to pay for all these bills. I don't have to have a mortgage. I don't have to you spend. And it's that biggest, we always say that's such a big cliche, isn't it? Like, oh, work to live, or whichever way around, I'm going to get it wrong.
So don't work to live, like live to work or something.
Yeah, like the idea that you shouldn't spend all of the years of your life when you can do the most stuff just making money to pay for a house, to...
But you don't live in because you're working
and then you get to retire and then you're 65, and you're probably not up for learning surfing right now, and you probably don't want to sleep in a tent on top of a camper anymore, because that's probably not really appealing now. So I don't know, just I think it's really weird that we're told that we should all spend the best parts of our life working, because that's what we should do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a middle ground, like you working, if you've got something you enjoy and you're passionate about, it's really good. But I know a lot of people who probably work in jobs they don't like because they need to...
Sure. I mean, if everyone did it, then we wouldn't have a society, right? So it doesn't really work. But yeah, doing something that you hate, because I know a lot of people that hate their jobs, and they just kind of, oh well, never mind.
That said, didn't just drop the ball line, like sell everything and ship off. You guys, took like the years building your van and doing some forethought.
Yeah, we wanted a secure foundation for it.
Yeah, no, you guys definitely seem to have done it more or less the right way. Not that there really is one for something as loose as this, but
everyone.
No, we just wanted to make it stable, so we have a bit of savings, but we have an income, and we wanted to cover ourselves, in case something really bad happened. We were like, we can always get home, we can always get out, we can always fix something, it's fine. Not just to be living with nothing and have no options.
I think one of the biggest questions that I get seen asked online are people who are considering moving into like a van life, and they always ask, "How do you make money on the road?" And everyone's different. It's there's a select few people who are very good at what they do and make money through Instagrams and sponsorship and YouTube, but majority of people, they get creative. There's a lot of digital nomads who work on the road. We last year in Baja, we met a professional gamer who had a gaming setup in her camper van, and she was one of like the top gamers in America and was making a load of money off that. And that was just completely blew my mind that they've got their whole computer just with them, rocked up with good internet, and they just play computer games and make money. I'm like, wow.
Why not?
Tons of options.
There's opportunities if you're creative.
Really crazy, just the amount of ways people are getting into this and managing to do it. Seems like everyone in this community has some kind of interesting backstory or interesting, like, you just get so much out of it. Like, I mean, whenever you're out experiencing, doing so many things, so many places, meeting so many people, like, how could you not come out of it with something original or interesting, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, we've probably seen more states in the US than most Americans have.
For sure.
Our cat has probably more traveled than some Americans, or a large proportion of it. Everyone's got their own story. Some people get into it to do what we do and see the world. Some people are forced into it. I know recently there was that Nomadland that just won at the Oscars, and that depicts a tale of someone who lost her husband and her job and was forced into it because they couldn't afford any other life. And we have met people.
I think that community's there though, isn't it? For everybody, even like, it doesn't matter why you're there. I think the kind of community that goes with it is quite nice. And we've met a lot of people while traveling that we probably have nothing in common with, apart from the fact that we live in campers, but
you make it work.
Yeah, you can still get along. That's what I mean. It's really varied, the kind of people that do it. It's not like a certain kind of person that decides that they're going to do that.
Yeah, I definitely think after living this type of lifestyle, every person I meet now who don't live it, I always say at some point in your life, you've got to experience it, even if it's for a 6-month period.
Like, or even just a few weeks.
It just completely changes your perspective. We get a lot of people who ask, "Oh, well, what do you do when you go home?" And we don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah, it's something else.
It kind of works.
Yeah, like, just kind of make it work, just like you guys have been.
We plan to buy a school bus in the States and ship it home and live in that. So we're not planning to go back into it. I mean, we would like to build a house and live in a house again, but it's not going to be financially viable. So we're planning to buy a school bus and live in that instead, because it'll be a lot cheaper. And it's not really practical to live in our camper van if you're in a wet, cold country. It's just too small, especially if you're trying to, work a job. You want to come home and be able to sit on the sofa or have a shower or just like normal stuff, really.
Yeah, you don't have to like shift your entire
you don't have to make your bed like from scratch every single day if you're working a proper job and stuff.
But we always assumed after the trip we'd go back into teaching, and as much as I love teaching and at some point I will do some form of teaching, the idea of doing a Monday to Friday job after having this freedom, it's kind of terrifying.
It kind of breaks everything, doesn't it? I'm like, no, I don't want to do it again.
No more.
It's awful. Yeah, no, for sure. Just having, it definitely is sort of a dreadful idea of having to have all this freedom and then having to willingly go back to something that's so regimented.
Yeah.
Especially when you realize that this is actually possible. Like, you can do it and you can live it and make it work, and you're like, oh, this actually does work. And then you're like, why would I do that other thing again?
But
it's like when we talked to the van person, the podcast, and we were like, oh, I can't imagine going back to the 9 to 5. And she was like, makes me shiver just thinking about it.
Does it ever get lonely? like you guys are meeting a bunch of new people, but like I don't know, conveniently you guys have each other, but I'm sure you've met some other people who are doing this on their own. Like, is that a problem?
We've met lots of people.
But in the States, we traveled by ourselves, basically. I mean, we met people for a few nights and then we kind of, people in houses and then obviously we left. But then in Mexico, we've always been with people.
Yeah, we've met a lot of people in Baja who were traveling. A lot of people trying to do the Pan America from Canada to Argentina. Lots of Europeans. COVID changed everything because we weren't able to travel, and we were fortunate to meet an amazing German couple who probably our best friends now. We lived on a ranch together and spent more time than I've probably spent with anyone else ever in my lifetime.
Yeah, we literally lived with them in this little like clearing in the desert for months, and we then traveled with them here for the rest of it. So we lived with these guys for a year, and then we're traveling for about, well, before now, this last few weeks with this Swiss guy, and he's traveling by himself, but he kind of tagged onto our group. And then this other guy from the States who was by himself, and he's like, oh, I might join you to like Guatemala or something.
You can, there's always someone around who you can join for a bit, and then you can dip out and do your own thing, and then meet up again.
Surprisingly small community, actually. Like you bump into people, like we met, well, New Year with the people from Switzerland, and then we just saw them in town the other day, like different state, hundreds of miles away, no plans to meet up. We heard they were in town, but we didn't message them or anything, and we were just like, oh, there they are.
Yeah, I think the loneliest I feel is family back in England.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's hard. Like, I've got a mum who's had a lot of health issues, and today that she's not alone, but she's got my sister, but that I can't be there to help, like, share some of that burden is kind of tough. And
yeah,
obviously with COVID as well, you're always worrying that maybe they're going to get ill and you won't be there to help them, or you're going to have to suddenly quit everything and drop it to fly back for something.
Yeah, definitely missing like home, friends and family, but I don't think I ever felt like lonely here as such.
Oh man. Well, all right. Such a like almost not sour, but like off-putting. Not even God. I feel like asking about loneliness was a bad question because we are running a little bit low on time. But how about do you have any just like really fun stories that you just want to get out? Just end it on a positive note because I'm running out low on time.
The funnest story I could say is when we were staying in Baja with this Canadian couple who owned this ranch. They met a guy who owned like a small mansion basically, and he invited them to a pool party because they were heading back to Canada again with all the borders closed, and they wanted to make sure they could get back because they had teenagers who they needed to check up on. So we go around to this guy's pool party in this small mansion, considering we're living in desert with like cactuses and lizards and like scorpions.
And he's got beer, which is like the selling point, because in Baja for a bit they declared that beer factories were non-essential like production. It wasn't.
There's a shortage of alcohol throughout Mexico.
Well, they shut it down, yeah. So no beer for months, and then this dude turns up and he's got all of that Sierra Nevada IPA, like this massive cool box, and we were like, ooh.
This man's got the gold.
Yeah, he's clearly a guy with connections. So we go around to like his house, and we're like, he's a proper. He must be like late 60s, long white hair, beard, proper hippie dude. And he's like telling us all these crazy stories about in the 70s how he like used to be basically a commune of like marijuana growers, and the FBI was trying to get him and stuff. And we're kind of with like a drug lord right now in Mexico. But he was like the sweetest guy.
He was a really nice guy, and he just had like a crazy all-night party. Well, for like 2 days. Yeah,
it was meant to be like we'll come for a few beers, and it ended up we were there from like Saturday till Monday morning non-stop partying.
Yeah, that was a good one. You meet some very interesting people.
Yeah.
Oh, man, sounds absolutely just insane. Like, just how you come in contact with these people, and then just the things that unfold by just, I guess just saying yes, and leaning into these things. Well, like I said, that is pretty much our time for today. Thank you so much for coming on. You guys were so much fun to have, so much fun to talk to you. Really glad that got all these stories and experiences out of you. While I have you, where can people find you?
So we go by the name the Kombi Chronicles. So
Kombi with a K.
Kombi with a K.
We're on Instagram and YouTube, Facebook.
If you're interested in all of the places we've been,
or if people want to ask us any questions about van, whatever, we always reply to people.
Look us up on YouTube, Facebook, the Kombi Chronicles. Thank you very much for having us. It's been awesome to talk.
You guys also mentioned a book. Is that happen to be out, or is that processing?
We do have a book. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's on Amazon. Same title.
Yeah, the Kombi Chronicles.
It's about Scotland. It's the first time we ever took our camper away and the bits that broke that time.
Well, I'm sure there's a bunch of great stories in that too. All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
If you made it this far, please be sure to subscribe to the show to catch more amazing stories from more amazing people. As always, I'm Trevor, and this was Out of Somewhere.